We're working to connect a region of over 600 million bridges between our lands.
Hello, I'm Alma Angeles and welcome to our first day of ASEAN in Focus this January. And joining me today is from our EBC Thailand Bureau. Hello, Cristel.
Hello, Alma, and Happy New Year and to all our viewers. Yes, I am Cristel Mapa from EBC Thailand Bureau, bringing you the news in the dynamic ASEAN region.
On today's headlines. The government of Thailand has imposed new curbs due to a spike in infections in the country. Faye Barte will give us an update.
The Health Ministry said Vietnam has detected its first imported case of the new COVID-19 variant that is spreading rapidly around Britain.
Singapore and neighboring Malaysia have scrapped plans for a high-speed rail line after failing to agree on changes, finally abandoning a costly and long-troubled project.
And 20,000 eco-friendly fireworks made of Japanese sticky rice brightens the sky of Bangkok to celebrate the New Year.
First, in the Philippines, the move of the Communist Party of the Philippines New People's Army or CPP-NPA to deploy squads or partisan units to counter government security forces has justified the terrorist tag issued by the Anti-Terrorism Council against the group, according to Defense Secretary Delfin Lorenzana. Your pronouncement and action is a confirmation of the ATC's designation of the CPP-NPA as a terrorist organization, Lorenzana said in a statement referring to CPP founding chair Jose Maria Joma Sison's claim that they bases to conduct armed partisan operations against the armed forces of the Philippines and the Philippine National Police and allied units who are allegedly targeting unarmed activists and civilians in urban areas. It is so easy for Mr. Sison to order from his safe and comfortable haven in the Netherlands the return of his city armed terrorists he calls partisan units, he added. Lorenzana labeled the partisan units that Sison is referring to as terrorist NPA assassins who are notorious for targeting government officials and unarmed non-combatant civilians in the past. But like the NPA sparrows of old, these terrorists face certain death and their blood will be in the hands of Mr. Sison, he added. Lorenzana dared Sison to bring on his assassins, saying the military is now more prepared to defeat them, unlike in the heydays of communist rebels in the 80s. The CPP-NPA is listed as a terrorist organization by the United States, the European Union, the United Kingdom, Australia, Canada, and New Zealand.
The government of Thailand has imposed new curbs due to a spike in infections in the country. Faye Barte reports. Hi, Faye.
Good afternoon to you, Cristel, and to all our viewers. Yes, the start of the 2021 here in Thailand is all about curbing and putting in restrictions to curb the COVID-19. And because of the sudden spike of the number of cases, Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha has imposed new restriction rules for the people to follow. And these are actually imposed in 28 provinces, and these 28 provinces are considered red zones labeled. And for the benefit of our viewers, red zones means it has maximum controls. It means the government officials or the provincial authorities can impose lockdowns or some restrictions or measures that the people needs to follow. So like the schools, the shopping malls are temporarily closed. However, for the eatery or like restaurants, they can still eat with the minimum number of people. And taking out of the food is highly advised. Another report which is connected with this, the Ministry of Education here in Thailand has imposed a guideline and instructing the teachers to do an online teaching instead of going to the physical school. To this letter that I have here, it would be January 4 up to January 31. And another report that I've gathered, this is actually from a social media blogger. Thai doctors have announced that the so-called UK variant has arrived here in Thailand. A family of 4 from England who were in ASQ, or the quarantine, they have now been moved to an isolation ward in a private hospital. Back to you, Christelle.
Thank you for all your updates. Continue to stay safe and stay healthy.
Thank you very much, and Happy New Year for everybody. This is Faye Barte. We live in interesting times.
The Health Ministry said Vietnam has detected its first imported case of the new COVID-19 variant that is spreading rapidly around Britain. The variant was identified in a 44-year-old woman returning to Vietnam from Britain who was quarantined upon arrival, and she tested positive for the virus last December 24. The ministry in a statement said researchers ran gene sequencing on the patient's sample, and they found the strain is a variant known as VOC 2021-2/01. Vietnam, which has recorded 35 COVID-linked deaths, is still operating repatriation flights to bring its citizens stuck in the UK home amid the pandemic.
New Year's Day is a time to be hopeful, President Rodrigo Duterte said on Friday as he welcomes 2021 with optimism. And I quote, "Today is a joyful day, a time for new beginnings and a time to be hopeful. We ended the previous year with so much difficulties and trials, but with much gratitude. It was because we endured everything, sustained by our distinct resilience as a people." End of quote, Duterte said in his New Year's message. As the country ended 2020, where it experienced various calamities, the president believes the Filipino people are now marching on to a new year, wiser, stronger, and more prepared for the challenges ahead. Duterte said the COVID-19 have cost the country so many lives and resources, but we also learned so much from it. This 2021, Duterte is confident that everyone will see brighter days ahead as he touted the indomitable spirit of the Filipino.
Back to Vietnam, human trials of the second homegrown COVID-19 vaccine may begin in late January this year. The vaccine, named COVIVAC, has been developed by the Institute of Vaccines and Medical Biologicals, or IVAC, since May 2020. The IVAC, established in 1978, has asked for the Ministry of Health's authorization to conduct human trials at the end of January after it had completed testing in mice and rabbits 2 months ahead of its plan. Dr. Duong Hu Tai, IVAC director, said outcomes of animal testing have shown that COVIVAC induced strong immune responses. The IVAC will coordinate with the National Institute of Hygiene and Epidemiology and the Hanoi Medical University to conduct the phase 1 human trials. Each dose will require 2 shots, with the first one followed by a second 28 days later under strict surveillance of the Ministry of Health. Vietnam has started human trials of the first COVID-19 vaccine, the NanoCovax, on December 17 last year. Beside the 2 aforesaid vaccines, 2 other homegrown vaccines are under development by the Vaccine and Biological Production Company Number 1, or Vabiotech, and the Center for Research and Production of Vaccines and Biologicals.
In Malaysia, where it reported 1,704 new COVID-19 cases on Sunday, with Selangor accounting for the majority of the latest infections. Malaysia is currently battling its third wave of COVID-19 during its Recovery Movement Control Order, or RMCO, period, and has registered four-digit daily increases for about 2 weeks. Health Director General Nur Hisham Abdullah said Selangor recorded 673 cases, of which 509 were from clusters and COVID-19 close contact screenings. The Recovery Movement Control Order, or RMCO, in Malaysia has been extended until March 31 due to a significant rise in COVID-19 cases nationwide with a high ineffectivity rate. Malaysia reports record 2,525 new COVID-19 cases on New Year's Eve. Malaysia entered the RMCO phase on June 10, where almost all social, educational, religious, and business activities, as well as economic sectors, reopened progressively. Interstate travel was also permitted while the country's borders remained closed. The RMCO was previously scheduled to end on December 31, 2020.
Meanwhile, Singapore began a coronavirus vaccination campaign last Wednesday with a nurse receiving the first jab, making it among the first Asian nations to roll out the inoculations. The Minister for Health, Gan Kim Yong, highlighted that vaccination is a milestone in the fight against COVID-19 and the priority is to ensure the vaccines are safe and effective. Take a look.
Today we are commencing our vaccination program, starting with our healthcare worker staff at the National Center for Infectious Diseases. This is an important milestone in our journey, in our fight against COVID-19. Vaccination is a very important strategy, and over time we will ramp up over the next few weeks and next few months, and we will begin to extend to healthcare workers in other public healthcare institutions, including private hospitals and so on.
I'm very thankful that I'm being vaccinated first. I'm feeling fine. I don't have any reaction. So it's just like an end bite to me.
I'm feeling okay after the jab. There's no side effects felt after taking the vaccination.
I'm feeling more protected. So with our mask, hand hygiene, physical distancing and all, this vaccine is probably the last layer of protection for each one of us. So in that sense, I do feel more confident now.
The city-state, which has suffered a mild outbreak, became the first country in Asia to approve the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine earlier this month. And its program kicked off with healthcare workers, Nurse Sarah Lim, as we saw earlier, whose work includes screening suspected COVID-19 patients. The first to be immunized. More than 30 staff from the center are receiving the first dose of the 2-shot vaccine last Wednesday, and they will get the second next month. After healthcare workers, the city-state will vaccinate the elderly and then the rest of the population. The government expects to have enough vaccines for all of the 5.7 million people in the city by the third quarter of this year, with the voluntary vaccine free for all Singaporeans and long-term residents. Other countries that have started immunizations include Britain, EU nations, and the United States, although most Asian nations are yet to begin. Vaccinations have been given in limited numbers in other parts of the region, including to members of the Philippine President Duterte's security team and to U.S. troops stationed in South Korea.
The Department of Foreign Affairs, or DFA, capped its repatriation efforts in 2020 by bringing home 3,227,511 overseas Filipinos. In a news release Monday, the DFA said land-based repatriates make up 231,537, or 70.7% of the total numbers, coming from at least 90 countries around the world. The remaining 29.3%, or 95,974, are seafarers from more than 150 cruise ships, oil tankers, and other bulk vessels. Since February 9 last year, the day when the DFA mounted its first COVID-19 repatriation flight to Wuhan, China, the department has been relentless in bringing home overseas Filipinos despite the multitude of challenges it faced.
And staying in the Philippines, most parts of the archipelago will experience isolated rain showers today due to the easterlies and the northeast monsoon, according to PAGASA. In its 4 a.m. weather bulletin, the Philippine Atmospheric, Geophysical, and Astronomical Services Administration said the easterlies affecting the eastern section of southern Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao will bring scattered rain showers and thunderstorms over Quezon, Bicol region, eastern Visayas, northern Mindanao, Caraga, Davao region, and Soc-Sargen. Cloudy skies with light rains due to the northeast monsoon will be experienced over Cagayan Valley, Cordillera Administrative Region, and Aurora Province, and partly cloudy to cloudy skies with isolated light rains over Ilocos Region and the rest of central Luzon. Metro Manila and the rest of the country will have isolated rain showers caused by localized thunderstorms. For the wind and coastal water conditions, moderate to strong winds and moderate to rough seas are expected over Luzon and the eastern section of Visayas and Mindanao. Winds will be light to moderate with slight to moderate seas.
Innovation, digital disruption, globalization. Startups, micro, small, and medium enterprises, as well as large corporations, all face interesting challenges in the market today. Peek into the world of exciting opportunities and partnerships to drive growth with the latest business news and information. We are open for business. Join the conversations to create a more vibrant environment for entrepreneurship. Catch Open for Business every Saturday from 5 to 6 p.m. Open for Business, from vision to action.
Yeah, we gonna go up. Ibibigay ko ang aking puso. Sa iyong tingin pa lang ako'y natunaw na mga
Enjoy listening to your OPM requests as we play them on air and online, from music videos
Sana tayo ng dalawa. Huwag nang mawala.
to entertaining live and home performances of your favorite OPM artists.
I believe in love. I believe in you.
Watch on air and online anywhere you go around the world.
I love the way she makes me smile, she makes me smirk. Yes, sir. It gives me chills, it makes me blush, it gives me worth.
Mag-hashtag Soundtrip and Chill kasama ang barkada ng Letters and Music. Mapapanood na tuwing Sabado at Linggo. Simula January 9, 1 p.m. only on Net 25.
Welcome back to ASEAN in Focus. Thailand's government held off from ordering new nationwide business shutdowns on Sunday amid the new wave of infections. However, some provincial governors were empowered to set their own restrictions. The government also pleaded with the public not to travel. An outbreak last month at a massive seafood market has spiraled into a resurgence. All public and private schools and vocational training centers are to close down from today until end of January. More than a dozen virus checkpoints were set up Saturday across the city. The country also reported its first known case of a more contagious variant of the coronavirus called B117 on Sunday. Senior virologist from Chulalongkorn University, Yong Puvawaran in Bangkok, said the variant was found in a family of 4 who were in quarantine after arriving in Thailand from the UK. On Sunday, it confirmed 315 new coronavirus cases, the majority of which are from local transmission, bringing its total to 7,694 cases and 64 deaths since its first last case last January. Thailand's economy has been hit hard by the coronavirus and is among the worst affected in Southeast Asia due to its reliance on tourism and exports.
To the Rohingya crisis now, the Rohingya previously living in overcrowded refugee camps are settling into a new life on a controversial flood-prone Bangladeshi island despite opposition from rights groups. Take a look.
Hey, panik jonna. Panik jonna.
মানে কি কানা হইছে গরু গোস্ত গোস্ত গরু সবা দিছি আর কাঁচা মাছ এখানে গোস্ত ভাত দিছি সামা দিছি
উল্টিয়ে উঠু আপনার প্রশ্ন করলে আমি প্রশ্ন করলে বুঝলাম হ্যাঁ আপনার প্রশ্ন করলে আমি কি বানাচ্ছেন কি বানাচ্ছেন
An armed group in Myanmar's conflict-racked Rakhine state released on Friday 3 members of Aung San Suu Kyi's ruling party who they had kidnapped ahead of November's election. The Arakan army has, for nearly 2 years, has been locked in battle with Myanmar's powerful military, fighting for more autonomy for the state's ethnic Rakhine population. Both sides stand accused of rights abuses, with hundreds killed or injured and some 200,000 civilians forced to flee their homes in an area under a strict lockdown, making independent reporting all but impossible. In October, weeks before an election that Suu Kyi's National League for Democracy, or NLD, was expected to win nationwide, gunmen descended on a campaign event in Tonggok Township in southern Rakhine and abducted 3 MP candidates. Accusing the NLD of collaborating and covering up war crimes committed by the Myanmar army, the AA said the aspiring legislators would be freed only if those detained unlawfully by the government and the army were released. On Friday, after discussions, the trio were freed along with 3 soldiers also held by the AA. The army, known in Burmese as the Tat Madao, said in a statement. The militant group confirmed the release, adding that the 3 NLD members were kidnapped for the purpose of war, politics, and revolution. It also called for scores of Rakhine politicians and civilians, including AA members, to be freed. The western state has long been a hotbed of conflict. Since the AA stepped up attacks on the military in 2018, Rakhine civilians and village chiefs suspected of being involved have been arrested, while family members of prominent AA figures were also detained.
In other news, Cambodia's famed Angkor Archaeological Park received 400,889 foreign visitors back in 2020. Now that's down 81.8% from 2.2 million in the year before, according to the state-owned Angkor enterprise in a press release issued last Friday. Now, Xinhua news agency said the park made $18.65 million in revenue from ticket sales last year, down 81% from $99 million in a year earlier. In December 2020, the park attracted only 1,169 foreigners, a drop of 99% compared to the same month in 2019. The huge slump was due to the impact of the pandemic that has forced the Southeast Asian nation to impose entry restrictions for all foreign travelers since March. The Ministry of Tourism Secretary of State and spokesman Top Sophia pinned the hope for tourism recovery on vaccines.
A French-Irish teenager with learning difficulties died by misadventure after disappearing in the Malaysian jungle on a family holiday, a coroner ruled Monday. After hearing all the relevant evidence, I ruled that there was no one involved in the death of Nora Ann Corinne, Coroner Mamuna Aid told a Malaysian court following an inquest. It is more probable than not that she died by misadventure. The body of Nora Corinne, a 15-year-old with learning difficulties, was discovered unclothed after a hunt through the rainforest following her disappearance from a resort outside Kuala Lumpur in 2019. Police insist there was no foul play, and an autopsy conducted in Malaysia found that she probably starved and died of internal bleeding after days in the jungle. But her parents think she was abducted, saying the teen would never have climbed out of the window of the chalet where they were staying in the dead of night, as police. Authorities sought to close the case, but her parents pushed for the inquest, which took place from late August to December, with proceedings streamed online due to the coronavirus pandemic. Police reiterated their belief the teen had wandered off alone from the Dusun Resort in August 2019, a day after checking in for a holiday with her London-based family. Senior police official Muhammad Mat Yusuf, among more than 40 witnesses who testified, told the inquest in Seremban City that there was no indication the victim was kidnapped and insisted authorities carried out a thorough search. But her parents, who testified via video link from Britain, painted a different picture, strongly criticizing authorities for their response to their daughter's disappearance. Her mother, Meb, said police were slow to launch a full-scale search and did not take her concerns about potential criminal involvement seriously. Her father, Sebastian, also said he heard mysterious muffled noises coming from the chalet the night of the schoolgirl's disappearance, fueling the family's belief she was snatched.
About 1,000 people in Malaysia's southern state of Johor have been placed in temporary evacuation centers after flooding caused by 2 days of heavy rain. According to a Bernama report, the State Health and Environment Committee chairman announced that 4 districts, namely Kulai, Johor Bahru, Kluang, and Kota Tinggi, were hit by flooding. Traffic was affected as well. There was a slippery stretch of road along the Kluang-Mersing route near Kluang, according to Bernama. Vehicles could still pass, but light vehicles could not get through another 3 locations along that same route, as the roads were already submerged with water.
Tuloy-tuloy ang saya sa 2021 dahil hatid ng Net25 para sa inyo ang pinakabagong game show na talaga namang mapapakanta ka sa sarap. It's singing time na! Starting January 4, 2021, Monday to Friday at 8 p.m. Dito lang yan sa Net25.
Singing time!
Malalayong lugar ang kanilang narating para maghanap buhay. Tulungan ang pamilyang iniwan sa sariling bayan. Yan ang ating mga overseas Filipino worker. Pero dahil sa di pangkaraniwang pangyayaring hatid ay krisis, may ilan sa kanilang nagpasyang umuwi. Pinagyaman ang sariling lupain, nagtayo ng negosyo na kasama sa puhunan ang sipag at tiyaga. Ang mga OFW, maraming sakripisyo, ninanais maging kapaki-pakinabang maging sa kanilang pagbabalik bansa. Sapagkat ang ating mga bagong bayani, Pilipino pa rin sa puso at damdamin.
Events happen around us all the time. In our community, in our country, around the world. Events that affect people, move communities, or simply inspire us. Interesting events that people need to know. In these interesting times, we continue to be a competent partner in delivering news about these events. Fast, accurate, balanced, eagle news, because we live in interesting times.
It says the best defense is still containment.
We are in uncharted territory.
Final volume 450. FI on to 100%. Traffic ban. Construction eh.
kababayan tulad ng OFW. Kasa at biyaya ang gusto sa ibang bansa. Ang iba ay di swerte, bumalik ng walang wala. Hindi mo makikita, bakas ng pagluha. Ang Pilipino, simple lang ang gusto. Basta't may kwentuhan, tawanan at kantahan. Masasayang tao, mga OFW. Anumang problema ay kayang-kaya, kahit walang pera. Okay, saya, saya, okay, saya, saya. Tayo lahat ay masaya. Tumawa ng tumawa, dapat laging masaya. Buhay ay gaganda. Okay, saya, saya, okay, saya, saya. Tayo lahat ay masaya. Tumalong, sumigaw, kumanta, sumayaw. Tayo lahat kaya saya, saya. Okay, saya, saya, okay, saya, saya. Tayo lahat ay masaya. Tumawa ng tumawa, dapat laging masaya. Buhay ay gaganda. Okay, saya, saya, okay, saya, saya. Tayo lahat ay masaya. Tumalong, sumigaw, kumanta, sumaya. Tayong lahat Que saya. Kumanta, sumaya tayong lahat. Que saya.
Welcome back to ASEAN in Focus. In Singapore economy suffered its worst ever annual contraction in 2020 as the coronavirus pandemic hammered the city-state's vital trade and tourism sectors, official data showed on Monday. But the 5.8% decline was not as bad as feared. Official forecasts had predicted a fall of up to 6.5% as economic activity picked up with the easing of curbs. The financial hub plunged into its first recession since the 2008 global financial crisis in the second quarter, when the government closed most workplaces as part of drastic measures to contain infections. One of the world's most open economies, Singapore is seen as a bellwether for the health of global trade, and its economy's dramatic deterioration rang alarm bells. But curbs were eased in the second half of the year, and key sectors of the economy, such as manufacturing, have begun to recover. In the fourth quarter, the economy shrank 3.8% year-on-year, less than expected, according to preliminary growth data released by the Trade Ministry. Song Seng-woon, a regional economist with CIMB Private Banking, told AFP the contraction was not as bad as feared due to strong exports of some goods. Song said he expects a rebound of around 6% this year. Singapore's small economy is typically hit first by external shocks before ripples spread across the region. However, it usually also recovers quickly from any downturn.
Meanwhile, Singapore and neighboring Malaysia have scrapped plans for a high-speed rail line after failing to agree on changes, according to officials, finally abandoning a costly and long-troubled project. The 350-kilometer rail network was expected to cut travel time between Singapore and the Malaysian capital Kuala Lumpur to 90 minutes from the 4 or more hours by car today. Singapore and Malaysia signed a deal to build a bullet train line in 2016, but its fate was thrown into doubt after the election of Malaysian Prime Minister Mahathir Mohamad 2 years later. Mahathir said he wanted to scrap the project as part of an effort to review major infrastructure projects approved by his scandal-tainted predecessor in a bid to cut the country's debt. Construction was then suspended for 2 years at Malaysia's request, with plans to commence service in 2031. The project was terminated after a final deadline on December 31 and after both governments failed to reach an agreement over changes proposed by Malaysia. Malaysia may have to pay as much as 500 million ringgit in compensation if the project is scrapped, according to former Prime Minister Mahathir previously said. He had estimated the railway would cost Malaysia around 110 billion ringgit in 2018. The neighbors have had fractious relations since Malaysia evicted Singapore from the Malaysian Federation in 1965, ending a brief and stormy union of the former British colonies.
The United States has banned imports from a Malaysian palm oil giant whose products are found in numerous household goods over concerns that its workers face a litany of abuse. The move against Sime Darby Plantation, one of the world's biggest producers, marks the second time the U.S. has blocked shipments from a palm oil company in the Southeast Asian nation in just months. Palm oil is a common ingredient in items ranging from processed foods to cosmetics, with Malaysia and neighboring Indonesia producing 85% of the world's supply. But activists have long claimed that low-paid workers on plantations face abuse and also blame the industry for driving destruction of rainforests to make way for the vast agricultural estates. Announcing the ban late Wednesday, U.S. Customs and Border Protection, or CBP, said there was evidence Sime Darby workers faced abuses, including sexual and physical violence, withholding of wages, and restrictions on movements. The decision means that all Sime Darby palm oil and palm oil products from Malaysia are barred from entering U.S. ports. It came after anti-trafficking group Liberty shared petition with the CBP to block Sime Darby imports over concerns about labor abuse. In a statement, the producer insisted it was committed to combating forced labor and has implemented robust policies to protect workers' rights and pledged to work with U.S. officials to address their concerns. Shares in Sime Darby Plantation, whose annual exports to the U.S. are worth about $5 million, fell 3.5% in Kuala Lumpur following news of the ban.
Here in the Philippines, Justice Secretary Bernardo Guevara said the government's anti-cybercrime units will intensify efforts to stop online sexual exploitation of children and minors. Guevara made this commitment amid reports of students holding a, quote, Christmas sale of sensual photos and videos to raise funds for distance learning-related expenses. He welcomed possible enactment of a new law that would strengthen the legal framework for the government's campaign against human trafficking in cyberspace, particularly online sexual exploitation of children and minors. On Sunday, Senator Sherwin Gatchalian also urged the Department of Justice's Office of Cybercrime and the Philippine National Police's Anti-Cybercrime Group to intensify their probe and crack down on the so-called Christmas sale. Gatchalian filed Senate Bill 1794, proposing that in cases involving child trafficking, regional trial courts can authorize law enforcers to conduct surveillance and record communications and information involving persons charged with or suspected of trafficking. The proposed measure also mandates internet service providers to install available technology, program, or software to block and filter any access to any form of child pornography. Gatchalian also filed Senate Bill 735, or the Human Trafficking Preventive Education Program Act, which seeks to orient Filipino children and youth about their rights, government protection measures, and the dangers posed by different forms of trafficking.
And we will leave you with some pictures of 20,000 eco-friendly fireworks made of Japanese tiki rice brightening the sky of Bangkok to celebrate the new year. Many events have been cancelled across Thailand following a recent wave of coronavirus cases. Take a look.
3, 2, 1!
Happy New Year to you, Cristel.
Happy New Year, Alma, and to all our viewers. And just before I go, Alma, allow me to greet one of our avid viewers in YouTube live streaming. A happy birthday to Engineer Ariel Ramos. Happy birthday po. Thank you so much po for always watching. And of course, Happy New Year to his family in Batangas.
Since you're greeting a Happy New Year, I'd like to greet a Happy New Year to Brother Wellen Regalado. Happy New Year po for always supporting ASEAN and Focus. Thank you very much po. Happy New Year. And thank you, Cristel. I'm Alma Angeles, and we live in interesting times.
Sa entertainment, it's singing time. Mapapasing ka sa excitement. Time to eat, time to sing. It's singing time. It's a lot of fun. Sing along na para malibang. Pakinggan ang mga kanta. Titikman na ang saya. Enjoy the show. Sing it! Tara na! Sa entertainment, it's singing time. Mapapasing ka sa excitement. Time to eat, time to sing. It's singing time. It's singing time. It's singing time. It's singing time. Time to eat, time to sing. It's singing time.
It's time to sing!
It's time to eat!
Hindi nga, it's time to sing na nga.
Hindi, it's time to eat!
Kantahan nga ito eh, kantahan to.
Kainan to.
Sige, ganito na lang. Para magkasundo tayo,
It's
singing time! Mula Lunes hanggang Biyernes, alas 8 hanggang alas 9 ng gabi.